Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, I'm Lenny and I have 6 Dachshunds, 5 long hair and 1 smooth. Please ignore the big spot on the tip of my nose during this video. So I went onto Facebook, and in 2 groups that we are posting in quite a lot, I asked what questions they would want us to answer. So I'm going to answer those questions. I'm also going to include a photo of the Dachshunds that asked these questions next to me here throughout this video. So the first question is from Milo and Martha, and the question is, why did you choose the breed Dachshund and how did you end up with 6 sausages? So I wouldn't really say that I chose Dachshunds, I would say that Dachshunds chose me. It's a bit of a long-winded story. My first Dachshund was Elsa, and once we had Elsa I got quite involved in the community of Dachshunds, and that sort of tumbled then into me having more Dachshunds. So my second Dachshund, Dee Dee, came from the Red Foundation, which is a Dachshund rescue, and I am lucky enough to be a trustee for that rescue and also sort of founded it with a few other people. And so I ended up with Dee Dee in my foster care, and then she stayed. And then, as I say, it's just sort of snowballed from there. I've been really involved in the community, which means that you just end up with more Dachshunds. So that sort of answers that one. In terms of how I ended up with Dachshunds, I'm not one of those people that was waiting to get a Dachshund for years. I did always love them, but I wasn't sort of waiting to get one for years. I just sort of ended up with one, really. So thank you very much for that question, Milo and Martha. The second question is from Dottie, and Dottie would like to know if we celebrate birthdays for our Dachshunds like she is showing in the photo here. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. We generally speaking celebrate the first and second birthday of all of our Dachshunds, but after the second birthday, having so many of them, we just sort of forget whose is when. So we're really buying them things throughout the year. If I see a toy that I like, I'll just buy it. I buy collars and harnesses as and when I see them. So generally speaking, they have a bit of a celebration on their first birthday and their second birthday. And then, if I'm really honest, we haven't really celebrated birthdays further than that. So thanks again to Dottie for that question. The next question is from Matilda. Matilda wants to know if Nemo and family like to snuggle as much as Matilda and Dottie do, shown in the photo that they've provided. And she basically says that they sleep side by side every night. So yes, they snuggle, especially if it's cold. They will just pile on top of each other. I'll try and include some photos if I can. But yes, they do absolutely like to snuggle, even when it's hot, to be honest. But they snuggle in pairs or in threes, and then when it's really cold, they snuggle all together. Often, if I lift up the duvet in the morning, they are literally just all together under the duvet. So yeah, definitely. I think that is a Dachshund thing, that they like to snuggle up with other Dachshunds, but ours definitely do that too. She also asked if I have concerns over Nemo's health in the future. Which she asks if I mind answering that question, which I don't mind at all, and I'm grateful to have it. So Nemo is our 3-legged Dachshund. He is currently not quite 7 months, I think. So yeah, Nemo's our 3-legged Dachshund. He currently goes to physio and hydro, and he actually has an x-ray tomorrow because they're a little concerned over his hip movement. We will basically just be paying for everything as and when it comes up. Because we do see a physio and hydro often, that means that they might pick up on something that I wouldn't pick up on. So at the moment, we don't have any huge concerns other than the x-ray tomorrow, which will tell us a lot more. In the future, I imagine he will get arthritis and things like that, but we'll just be taking it as and when. He can't be insured because he was born with that leg missing, so they won't cover anything pre-existing. So we are just basically taking anyone's advice and following as much as we can. So he does have hydro weekly, and he does have physio, but he's on a break from that at the moment while we wait for the x-ray. And then in the future, I don't know, I can't really answer it. We want to avoid having any types of major surgery just because it would be really unfair on him considering what he's already been through. But we will take the advice of the vets and the physio and the hydro as and when they give it to us. The next question is from Daphne. Daphne wants to know what sort of toys are the favourites for these dogs. At the moment, they all have the same favourite, which you've probably been hearing during this video, which is currently being played with. So I will go Actually, I will include a clip because I do have a clip of them playing with it. But I sort of just pick up random toys as and when I see them in supermarkets or online. And they tend to all favour that toy for a while and then they'll move on to another one. Fenton and Elsa love balls, but they like the little tennis balls, the squeaky Kong ones. So we can't actually keep them in the house. They only come out when we go on walks because otherwise they just bark for them the whole time. They love those. No one else is really into balls. Prada is sometimes. She's my miniature pincher. But she picks and chooses when she's in the mood for one. And then the rest of them just like toys as and when. So some of them like ropey toys, some of them like crinkly toys, which is their favourite at the moment. But I wouldn't say that they've got a favourite toy each. They swap between. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. So thank you very much, Daphne, for that question. The next question is from Daisy, and she would like to know what are the favourite treats in the house. And she also wants to know if Nemo will be her boyfriend, which I'll get him to answer that one. So favourite treats. So we swap the treats up quite a lot because I do find that they'll love something for a while and then they're just not that bothered by it. So at the moment their favourite treat is venison sausage, which I will try and include something somewhere on the screen of them eating venison sausage. I'll probably go and film it in a minute and put it on the screen. That's their favourite at the moment. They seem the most interested in that, but they do move between. So before that, they were really interested in dried duck necks, but they sort of take a bit longer with them now, and I'm not sure they're as fussed with them. And before that, they really like dried fish, but they've gone completely off that for a minute, but I'm sure they'll want it back at some point. And if I'm really honest, they really love the really cheap treats, so sort of by Pedigree or Baker's, but they only get that when we go on walks or when our neighbour brings some round. But they do really like them, but we try to keep our treats as natural as possible. So thank you very much, Daisy, for that question. I've got quite a lot of questions to get through, by the way, so that's why I'm trying not to answer them too long. Plus the sun is shining directly in my eye. So if I rush through these answers, please do feel free to comment below if you've got further questions. So the next question is from Lola. And Lola asks, oh, Fenton's moving the door with his head. And Lola asks, is there any collar or lead sets that we would recommend? So our dogs are walked on a collar, other than Nemo, who gets a harness most of the time. I would definitely recommend Biothane collars, and the company that we use to buy them from is Dachshunds, which I will link below. I'll also include some images of our dogs in them. The Biothane is just really lightweight and easy to clean, and I find with Dachshunds I'm wanting as lightweight a collar as possible. So once we had one from them, we just kept going back because we just realised that they were really good quality and really easy to clean. Other than that, collar-wise, we do have some tartan ones that we got from Tartan Dachshund, which are more of something that they wear when they go to a Dachshund event or something where they're not going to get them really scruffy. I'll include an image of that as well. But that's our favourite two companies and the reasons we buy from them. The next question is from Flapjack. Are you enjoying that, are you? Sorry if you can hear that toy throughout this whole video, but I'm not going to take it off them because they're enjoying it. The next question is from Flapjack, and it's, what are your tips to help with recall? She says that Flapjack's been a bit of a naughty boy off of the lead. So I've got a couple of tips with recall. If you don't have a dog yet, so not answering this specific to Flapjack, but just answering it in general, if you don't have a dog yet, as soon as you get them, if you can, and if they're a puppy, of course, let them off as soon as possible, because when they're a puppy, they won't want to go too far away from you anyway, so you can keep reinforcing that recall all the time because they'll always choose to come back to you, in my experience. If it's a little bit later in life and you're trying to work on recall, then really you need to buy a really long line. So you can get ones that are 10, 20, 30 metres. So I'm not talking about an extension lead, I'm talking about a long line, which I'll include an image somewhere on the screen. And if you've got a long line, they will feel like they're off the lead, but they're actually on a lead, so you still have that control. So you can let them run free on a long line, and over and over again, just keep calling them back for no reason. So don't call them back when you need them to come back. Call them back all the time, just randomly throughout your walk, and then reinforce that behaviour with a treat and a good boy. That really is the best way to work on recall. And then also what you can do, if you've got a local field that you can hire, is go to that field with someone else, a friend or something, and get them to walk the dog to the other side of the field or as far as you're happy with, walking the dog, and then ask them to let the dog off and you call them back and then you reward. I definitely believe in positive training, so reward-based training. So where you can, you reward the good behaviour and ignore the bad. So an important part of this tip is that if they don't come back straight away, you don't tell them off once they do come back, because you still want to reward the fact that they came back, which is really difficult because when they've been off and you've been calling and calling and they don't come back, you often want to tell them off. But the best bet is to not tell them off and still reward the fact that they came back. And if they didn't come back and you chased them and managed to get them, then obviously don't reward that. So I hope that's helpful, Flapjack and Mum. So the next question is from Heston, who is one of Nemo's friends. And Heston wants to know what our preference is when it comes to a lead and collar or harness and why. So that's a really good question. So we have always preferenced collars because I have just found that they walk better in a collar. So I find that they don't pull as much. I find that they are easier to correct when there's something that needs correcting. And I also find that they walk with a better gait, so they don't walk as awkwardly with a collar, which I can, in my opinion, is probably them showing that they are walking more comfortably. So I've always preferenced a collar. With Nemo, it's a bit of a different story because he only has 3 legs. We do preference the harness because I'm then able to support him slightly when we're walking slightly longer distances. So we do preference it with him. But he does still sometimes just wear a collar. It depends where we're walking. If I know he's going to be off lead, then maybe I'll just bring the collar along. But for the other dogs, I've always preferenced a collar for the Dachshunds. So thank you very much, Heston and Mum. So the next question is from Otis and Archie. And the question is, we would like to know if your sausages are barkers and what tips do you have in order to keep them under control on walks and meeting new people. So yes, my dogs bark, especially if they're meeting new people and especially if they're meeting big dogs. They're a bit better when meeting small dogs, but yeah, they're barkers. I do have tips for this, but I feel like a bit of a hypocrite giving them because, to be honest with you, I just deal with the barking. I control it by not putting them in as many situations where they need to bark. Or if I'm putting them in a situation where they need to bark, then I make sure I've got loads of reward on me so that I can try and distract them as much as possible. There are long-winded ways to try and reinforce good behaviour around new people and dogs, but I have just chosen that with 8 dogs. To be honest with you, I don't need to do it. I don't mind the barking. So mine do bark, and once they are walking and happy, they tend to not bark as much. If there's 2, 3, 4 of them, then they're not as bad. If there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, then they're definitely worse. So yeah, I do have some tips on this, but I do feel a bit of a hypocrite giving them because I let them bark. But there are definitely long-winded ways to correct the barking or make it a more positive experience meeting people and dogs. I would say, as a main tip, don't self-diagnose the barking. So you might see it as aggression and actually it's not. So if you're really concerned about the barking and you feel like it's getting worse, then definitely get a behaviourist in. They're well worth their money for the amount of training they go through and the experience they have. So try not to self-diagnose barking because you might think they're barking because they're aggressive when actually they're just frustrated and wanting to get to the thing that they're barking at. And so once they get to it, they're actually really happy. So try not to self-diagnose the barking. I have diagnosed the barking in my dogs through experience and through meeting other dogs and also through friends that are trained behaviourists. And I know that their barking really means nothing other than just telling me there's something to bark at. So for that reason, I don't try and really correct it. I'm not hugely bothered by it. And I know that once we're with whatever it is they're wanting to bark at, they stop. So yeah, I hope that helps a bit. So I guess my main tip really in this, like in all this blabbering, is get a behaviourist if you're really concerned. And if you're not that concerned, it's just a bit of barking. God, I am going on now. I'll try and make this a bit quicker. So the next question is, how do you socialise puppies that get a bit anxious around other dogs? I'm going to include a photo here, but I don't think they left their name of the puppy and it's so cute. But yeah, so I'll include a photo, but I don't think I've got the name. So puppies that get a bit anxious around other dogs. So we definitely had this issue with Nemo. He is definitely a lockdown puppy, so he didn't get socialised during that prime time where people would usually be coming down to their level and stroking them. They weren't allowed to come anywhere near us. So we've definitely had that issue. We have actually worked for a few sessions with a behaviourist, and she's done really interesting ways of resolving it and working on it in a really controlled way. So we used the behaviourist as a trigger, so letting her come towards us and rewarding when he chose to be quiet or when he chose to look at me. And we also used fake dogs that she has to introduce dog movement around him, again at a safe distance where he doesn't need to bark or feel scared, and we reward the not barking. And then over those weeks we increased how close she got to us and how close the dogs got to us, and again continued to reward. And I found he's getting a lot more confident. So it's trying to find ways to do it in a controlled way. So working with a behaviourist is obviously an easy way to do that because the behaviourist can keep things controlled. But if you're not fortunate enough to be able to do that at the moment, then it's just making sure that any introduction is as controlled as possible. That might mean that you go to places where dogs are going to be on lead so that you can call over to the owner and just say, oh, I'm trying to teach my dog not to be anxious. Can we have an interaction? And then you maybe give them a treat to give to your dog. But it's just trying to do things in a controlled way. To be honest with you, I could do a whole video on anxious dogs or barking and the things I've just been talking about. But I always recommend just getting a behaviourist in if you can, because they can do all of these things in a much more controlled way than we can do ourselves. But that's what we've been doing with Nemo anyway. We worked with a behaviourist and I've just been continuing that. So I've been keeping a distance from people and dogs and then just asking them if we can interact in a controlled way and making sure he's getting loads of rewards in that controlled way. I hope that helps a bit. So the next question is from Jock. Jock wants to know what the best way to transition a new Dachshund friend into his life. So the photo they've provided is very funny. So transitioning a new dog into your life. So the first tip in terms of bringing a new Dachshund home sort of depends on whether it's a puppy or an adult. So if you're introducing an adult dog, then you want to try and meet on neutral ground. So you might go for a walk first and then go home afterwards. That can just make the introduction a little bit better. There's no guarding of their property then, and so it just makes it a bit more seamless. But if it's a puppy that you're suggesting bringing home, then my advice is bring the puppy home. I always turn the rear end of the puppy to the adult dog so that they can sniff it and they learn a lot through smell, and unfortunately they learn a lot through each other's bums. So turning the puppy to the dog so they can sniff it instead of making them introduce face on, which is just not normal behaviour for a dog. So making sure they've had a sniff of each other's rear ends, and then to be honest with you, I try not to interfere too much. So I'll put the puppy down, let the puppy have a sniff around, let the adult sort of keep an eye on what's going on and read the situation. And unless I really need to interfere, I just let them get on with it. Dogs are much more clever than us. They learn a lot more through smell, body language than we do. So it's usually best to just let them get on with it the way that they will. And you see photos of Dachshunds like cuddling from day one. That's not always going to happen. So just don't interfere and let them take their time in growing their relationship. So that's my tips with that. I hope that helps a little bit and maybe reduces your concerns. If you're wanting a second one and you're in a position to get one, definitely go for it. So this question is from Pretzel, Strudel and Crumpet, amazing names. So they want me to introduce each dog individually. So instead of interrupting them while they're sleeping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce them and then put up on the screen some video footage of each dog. So I will go through my Dachshunds first and then my miniature pinchers, and I'll go in age. So starting with the oldest. So the first Dachshund I want to introduce you to is Dee Dee. She's 14 years old and she is a rescue dog from the Red Foundation. She is a long-haired red mini. And if I were to just describe her personality a little bit, she loves licking things, so she will lick the other dogs and lick the sofa and lick people. She's definitely a bit of a licker. And she definitely doesn't act like a 14-year-old, so she does run around. She does try and play with Nemo, and that's just a little bit about her. My next dog in line is Elsa. Elsa is 6 years old, and she is a mini long-haired black and tan. Traits about Elsa is that she loves a Kong ball, which I said earlier in this video. She does love one, but so she can only have them on walks because Otherwise, she just wants it the whole time. Elsa is really people friendly, so she absolutely loves people. She does hate black Labradors and Collies, which is quite a common Dachshund trait. So there's one more thing I had to say about Elsa. It would be that she hates being sniffed in the rear end by other dogs for too long. She will let them do it for a couple of seconds, and then after a while she will snap at them, which is maybe a bad trait or a good trait, depending on how you see it. The next dog I want to introduce you to is Evie. She is a long-haired miniature red brindle, and she is 4 years old. She is a miniature, but she might be classed as a rabbit in other countries, but in the UK she's a miniature. Evie is my little shadow. She is very bonded to me. She's not so much interested in anyone else at all. So that's a huge personality trait of hers, is that she is very connected to me and she will follow me around. If I go upstairs, she'll follow me upstairs. Whereas my other Dachshunds will just stay where they are usually. She is my little shadow. Another trait that she has is that she is definitely the mum of the house. So she has 2 children here, Fenton and Eva, and she definitely is still their mum, even though they're much older now. And that is definitely a big part of her. The next dog I want to introduce you to is Fenton. Fenton is Evie's son. He is also a long-haired mini red brindle, and he is 2 years old. Fenton definitely is the playful one of the pack. He loves toys, all toys, doesn't matter what they are, and especially loves chasing after a ball and then giving that ball to Elsa. He doesn't generally bring it back. He will wait for Elsa to bring it back. And he's not really my dog. He's more John's dog, to be honest. So that's Fenton. The next dog I'm going to introduce you to is Eva. Eva is also 2 years old because she is Fenton's sister. She is a smooth red brindle and she is our only smooth. Eva, although she is older than Nemo, is definitely more of the baby of the group. She is absolutely tiny and stopped growing at about 6 months old. She is really playful and she loves people. She gets super excited about meeting new people and having new friends. And that's, I would say, out of all of our Dachshunds, she is the most people loving. So that's her main trait. The next dog I want to introduce you to is Nemo. Nemo is our 3-legged Dachshund. He is classed as a tripod, that's what we like to call him, or a tripaw. He is 7 months old and he is also a long-haired red brindle. Nemo has a very strong bond with me as well, so he will whine if I'm out of the house, which I don't mind. I do carry him around quite a lot, so I guess we have bonded through that. A main trait of Nemo's at the moment is that anxiety that he's had from lockdown, so not going through socialization during that key period, but he's getting a lot better with that now, so it's really great seeing him wagging his tail when he meets new dogs and people. Nemo, also considering he is a 3-legged dog, funnily enough, one of his favourite things is running, so he loves running, so that's definitely one of his main traits. So now let's move on to the miniature pinchers. So I know this channel's about Dachshunds, but I thought I should introduce them because I do own them. So I've got 2 miniature pinchers, and I'll start with the oldest. So Prada is 10. She is a miniature pincher. She is a black and tan, although she is now a black and grey. Prada is the head of the household, so she keeps everyone in line and keeps us all really well balanced, probably including me. And she is extremely well behaved, so she is good on walks, she is good with toys, she is good with recalls, so she's definitely the most well behaved of the house. And she is really the main influence on why I got a second miniature pincher, because of how well behaved and easy to train she was. But sadly, that didn't translate into Reuben, so let's move on to Reuben. So Reuben is a miniature pincher, but we think he's got some Chihuahua in him. He is a black and cream, and he is a lot bigger than Prada. So we think he has got a little bit of Chihuahua in him, which has influenced the way he looks a little bit. So Reuben is a very interesting little fella. He is 7 years old, and he had a little bit of a difficult start. So he definitely is very anxious, but he's grown out of that a bit more now. He didn't used to like people at all. He would go absolutely berserk, but now he just keeps his distance more often and will just go and sit in his bed. And he's not too interested in new dogs either. So he definitely is his own dog, and he doesn't really like new people, and he doesn't really like new dogs. Basically, I would say he's a very tolerant dog, but he's not the most friendly dog. He's got an interesting character. He only wants toys that the other dogs have got. He doesn't want toys if they haven't got it. And he only wants food that the other dogs have got. So he's quite interested, bless him. So that's all of my dogs. I hope you enjoyed those little traits, but I could go into far more detail about each dog, but for now, that's their names, ages, colours, etc. So thanks for that question. The next question is from Flynn, And Flynn asks, did I grow up with a lot of dogs? So I did grow up with dogs, but not lots of dogs, but I did grow up with dogs. So my family had border collies. And one of our border collies was a border collie cross retriever. So I did always have dogs around until about the age of, I think, about 12. And then we had guinea pigs. And now my parents have got a collie again now, but we did have like a chunk of time where we didn't have a dog. So they got their newest collie around about the same time that I got Prada. But before that, guinea pigs. Before that, we had collies. So collies are really easy to train. They're complete opposite to Dachshunds, really. So I don't know how I fell into small breeds, but yeah, I did grow up with dogs, so I definitely think that had an influence on me wanting one as soon as I could have one. So thanks for that question. The next question is from Bertie, and it asks, what weight are my Dachshunds? So for this question, if I'm completely honest with you, I don't weigh them. I run everything off of body condition, so I increase or decrease their food based on their body condition, not on their weight. So I really just don't weigh them unless they need to go to the vets for a reason that they have to be weighed then. I know that Nemo is now 4.3 kilograms and he is 7 months old because he is weighed often when he goes to the vets, and because he's having an x-ray tomorrow, he is weighed. Although I keep saying tomorrow, but his x-ray might actually be today because this video will probably go out on Wednesday. But yeah, so I don't weigh my Dachshunds. I think that they're all between 3.8 and 5. None of them are over 5 kilograms. But I don't know their individual weights. Sorry, I can't answer it. But thank you for the question anyway. The next question is from Ariana, or Ariana, probably how you pronounce it, that they'd like to know, even though you have a load of dogs, would you ever get any more, and if so, what breed? So, would I get a different breed? I really love corgis, but I've heard that they're just as bad as Dachshunds for barking, but just a bigger version, but I would really love a corgi. I guess what if I just list my top 5 other breeds? So my top 5 other breeds that I would get if I were to get another dog are probably another Dachshund. Probably, I really like corgis. I really love the look of the Papillon. I do really like the look of them, but I don't know much about the breed, so I wouldn't rush into getting one. I would quite like another Pomeranian. I did have one in foster care for a while and she was lovely, so I love the Pomeranians. And if I were to get a large breed, it would probably be a retriever. So that's my top 5. So the next question is about barking again. So I have already covered that question, but I will include the picture of this dog anyway because absolutely gorgeous. And I'm on to my last question. Woo! So the next question is from, I don't know how you pronounce this, Faline? I'm probably meant to know this, but I haven't seen Bambi in so many years. So the actual question is my dog's names and the inspiration behind those names. And the inspiration behind this dog's name is the little girl deer from the Disney film Bambi. So that's a really cool question, but I don't know how you pronounce the name. So my dog's names, let's go through them. So we've got Prada, who I didn't name, but I kept her name because she knew it. I've got Reuben, who I named after one of my favourite bands. I have got, who's next in line? Dee Dee was called Dior, so we just nicknamed her Dee Dee because I thought having a Dior and a Prada would be a little bit interesting when I was calling their names on a walk. Not quite me. And then we've got Elsa. Elsa, actually, we were going to name Alexis, but it just didn't suit her, and I have no idea why I was going to name her Alexis because now older me hates that name. So she was called Elsa. There's not really a reason behind it. Do you know what? It just automatically came out. I don't even think Frozen was out yet. So yeah, no reason behind the name Elsa. Eevee is called Eevee after the Pokemon Eevee. Eva is called Eevee after Eevee. So Eva wasn't going to stay with us. Eva was going to go to my friends and she wanted to call her Eva after Eevee. But sadly, she didn't end up having her. So we kept her and we just kept the name because we'd been calling her Eva from such a young age. So she stayed as Eva. Fenton is called Fenton after the Fenton video, you know, the viral one. Jesus Christ, Fenton. He is actually called Fenton after that. And Nemo is called Nemo because he has a little fin where he doesn't have his leg. So that's the reasons behind their names. So I just want to finish this video by thanking you all for popping your questions in. I hope that I answered them okay. If you've got any further questions leading from my answers, then please do comment below and subscribe because I will have further videos where I'll probably answer the same questions again, or I'll do whole videos on those questions. And if you want to enter into my next Q&A, then you can do, just again ask the question below in the comments below, or you can go and follow Nemo's page on Facebook and ask any questions there. So if you go on Facebook and go to Nemo Tripod Sausage Dog, you'll find him there. I'm sure that there's not another one, so I'm sure you'll find him easily enough. And yeah, thank you very much for all of your questions. I can't believe how many we had asked. And as always, I'll sign off this video with, it is Dachshund, not Dachshund, not Dachshund, Dachshund. Thanks guys.